Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 57, The Breeding Center Secret. The episode begins with Ash and the gang in a random city that isn't even in the games, as Todd proceeds to take a picture of Misty's Togepi. The city has multiple big screen TVs on the walls, and they're initially reporting on a weather report, but then a commercial comes on for a local breeding center that is run by a guy and a girl, and was notorious for how fucking awesome it was, utilizing pure love and care in order to make Pokemon evolve. Even being able to make Pokemon evolve, that trainers were having trouble doing so. This episode was a missed opportunity to talk about friendship evolutions then. I mean, I know they didn't exist at that point, but you could have done an episode on them. Anyways, Ash and the gang then decide to go check out this breeding center, mainly because Brock was attracted to the woman in the commercial, being a simp as usual, but also because Misty actually wanted to drop off her Psyduck there. When Ash and the gang arrive, they're disappointed to find that the place has a very long line, so Brock gets depressed at the fact that he's not going to be able to go talk to the girl, who was currently busy accepting a Sandshrew from one of the kids who was in line. Misty then manages to get to the front of the line eventually, and Ash suggests that she leave her Staryu as opposed to her Psyduck, so that Staryu could actually get stronger. But Misty argues that she wants to leave her Psyduck there, so that the center could improve its intelligence and its stupid look that it always puts on when it has a headache. Which he stretches his eyes out to try and mimic. Dude, Misty, don't abuse Psyduck like that. Ash then rightfully calls out Misty that she likely just wanted to leave the Psyduck there, and then leave it there permanently and not even bother coming back for it because she hated it so much, but Misty rebuttals that that wasn't the case. And I mean, yeah, I guess it was kind of foolish of Ash to assume something like that. I mean, Misty and Psyduck have made up in the past. Sure, they still get into their arguments, but they don't hate each other nearly as much, or at least Misty doesn't hate Psyduck nearly as much as she used to. Just then, Ash and the gang stumble upon a restaurant that's all you can eat for free. Yay! Misty was absolutely starving at this point, so she was particularly excited, but Todd, being the level-headed one, comments that no one usually gives anything away for free, and that there was probably a catch. Everyone doubts this, but Todd's assumption is proven right, as the head chef of the restaurant then comes out and reveals that the restaurant was only free if you could show him his favorite Pokemon. To make this harder, he also didn't tell you what the Pokemon was, so you basically just had to guess out of all the hundreds of Pokemon out there which one it was, on top of catching it. This leads Ash and the gang to send out all of their Pokemon in hopes that one of them would be his favorite. Ash sends out all of his, and particularly emphasizes his Pikachu as being really cute, but it's none of them. Brock then sends out all of his, but nope. Misty then sends out all of hers, minus her Psyduck obviously, and nope. Of course, when Ash brought out all his Pokemon, he didn't bring out his Charizard, because Charizard obviously wouldn't listen to him, but he brought out everybody else. But, of course, the only Pokemon that Ash and the gang don't currently have on them, being Psyduck, is the restaurant owner's favorite Pokemon, as he shows him a picture of it. So, that causes Misty to get pissed off at her bad luck, obviously, and she hurriedly asks the restaurant owner if he would still be open later, signifying that she would go and get her Psyduck and be right back. The restaurant owner's like, yeah, of course I'll be open later, this is my business, why would I close it early? And Misty immediately wants to head to the center to get her Psyduck back. Damn, she must really be hungry then, if she now suddenly doesn't care about making Psyduck more smart. Unfortunately, when Ash and the gang arrive back at the breeding center, they find out that it was closed, even though they were just fucking there. Why would it be closed now? But anyways, the rest of the gang come to the sensible conclusion that they should just, wait until tomorrow and then come back. But Misty angrily retorts this suggestion, stating she wanted Psyduck right fucking now, because she wanted that goddamn food. So, they decide to try and break in to the breeding center for some reason, as Misty goes to knock on the secret back entrance. But when she knocks, the door just opens, revealing that it was already unlocked. So, they decide to step in without any permission. They stumble upon a hallway, and proceed to go looking into all the rooms to try and find where the Pokemon are located, and they eventually stumble upon a dark room, prompting Brock to bring out a flashlight, which he shines all over the room, revealing numerous cages filled with Pokemon in them, such as a Poliwag, and the previously delivered Sandshrew. Brock and Misty then spot Misty's Psyduck, and Misty realizes that her Psyduck seemed to look more intelligent now, as its eyes were less derpy than before. But Brock then realizes that that was only because its eyes were being held up with fucking tape. Damn, I guess this was an abuse center, not a real Pokemon breeding center. Misty immediately removes the tape, being able to reach through the cage to do so, but she couldn't reach through the cage to save him or anything. So she moves on, and Ash and the gang all meet up after having looked at all the Pokemon, where they then spot a conveyor belt, as well as the Sandshrew in the cage from earlier being lifted up by a huge crane and dropped on this conveyor belt, as the cage is then brought in to the conveyor belt's destination, which was another room. Inside this other room were the two breeding center owners, including the girl who Brock was infatuated with. It's revealed that they were actually fucking evil, and were planning to steal all the Pokemon that were dropped off at the center, revealing that they didn't actually take care of the Pokemon at all, they merely just put them in cages as soon as they arrived. But that begs the fucking question, how did this breeding center get such a good reputation if they never actually treated any of the Pokemon, right? Anyways, the two breeding center owners are talking about how they were stealing all the Pokemon, but unbeknownst to them, Ash and the gang could hear everything they were saying, as the conveyor belt led right into the room, right? So all Ash and the gang had to do was just lean in a little bit, and they could hear everything going on in the room ahead. So, after discovering the truth behind the breeding center, they get the idea to have Todd take pictures of all the captured Pokemon, and then they could show all the pictures to the police. While they do this, it's revealed that the two breeding center owners weren't just random-ass thieves, no. They were members of Team Rocket, known as Butch and Cassidy. That's right, guys, Team Rocket did have other members, aside from Jesse, James, Meowth, and Giovanni after all. Speaking of Giovanni, Butch and Cassidy then call him as they inform him how their scheme was going, and it's revealed that Giovanni had appointed Butch and Cassidy with this job of stealing Pokemon without informing Jesse and James, because he was to the point where he just didn't fucking trust them anymore because they could never do anything right, and they never actually gave him any Pokemon. So it was obvious that he held Butch and Cassidy in a much higher regard. Anyways, Todd begins taking pictures of all the caged Pokemon like the gang planned, but unfortunately for them, Butch looks by the conveyor belt and notices the cameras flash. So he gets suspicious and goes into the hallway to go to the door to get into the Pokemon room with all the Pokemon in it. But why wouldn't he just crawl through the conveyor belt? Ash and the gang are able to overhear the fact that Butch was coming, though, so they're able to come up with a plan before he arrives, as they all hide, and they have Pikachu go in one of the cages and use an electric attack. When Butch enters the room, that's the first thing he sees, so he assumes that the flash that he saw from earlier was not in fact Todd's camera, but rather just electricity coming from Pikachu. This causes him to leave the room believing nothing was wrong, leading Ash to congratulate Pikachu on successfully doing such a good plan last minute. Todd then finishes taking pictures, and he's like, alright, we should get the fuck out of here and bring these to the police now, with Brock agreeing. But Misty then tries to free Psyduck from its cage, not wanting to let it go. See, Ash, Misty does care for Psyduck after all, and now it was backfiring for you because you could have got out by now, but no. Because of Misty's refusal to leave, Ash and the gang are there long enough that they start to hear a window creak, and then the window breaks open as Jesse and James and Meowth break through, falling through the window onto the ground. As established before, Jesse and James were not here under Giovanni's request, unlike Cassidy and Butch. They were here of their own accord, wanting to steal the Pokemon to give to Giovanni anyways, as they just believed that this place was a random-ass breeding center that had rare Pokemon, and they wanted to steal it. They didn't know that this place was actually associated with Team Rocket, as Giovanni told them nothing. So this meant that their plan was essentially to steal Pokemon that Team Rocket had already stolen. Awesome job, guys. I mean, you can't really blame them for this one, though, because they were ignorant. Anyways, as soon as Team Rocket arrive, they immediately try picking the locks on the cages to get the Pokemon, but with Ash and the gang standing right there, they immediately confront them, which scared Jesse and James somehow. Like, how did they not realize that Ash and the gang were standing right there? Anyways, when Team Rocket spots Ash and the gang, they assume that since Ash and the gang were here after hours and sneaking in, just like they were, that they were actually there to steal the Pokemon as well, and were surprised. They begin to argue with them that they were going to steal the Pokemon, not them, leading Ash to attempt to clarify that, no, Team Rocket, why the fuck would we stoop to your level and steal Pokemon? We're here to save them. Now can you actually get off your ass and maybe help us save them? I don't know why Ash would try and request their help, though. It's obvious Team Rocket wouldn't do anything to help. But thankfully, this stupid argument is then cut short, as all the yelling alerts Butch and Cassidy, and they come into the Pokemon room and reveal themselves, turning on all the lights and revealing themselves as newer members of Team Rocket, who have Eradicate as their major Pokemon, as opposed to Team Rocket's Meowth. Another thing that kind of makes them similar to Jesse and James, ironically, is that they have a motto, which is very similar to theirs, just a little bit more violent, being to infect the world with devastation and blight all people within our nation, as opposed to Jesse and James's. Anyways, when they reveal themselves, Jessie is instantly furious as she recognizes Cassidy, and the two of them get into an argument about their past, revealing that they actually knew each other in the past, and were always enemies, getting into arguments, likely, like, related to school-level shit, like, my clothes are better than yours, I'm more beautiful than you, that type of shit. James, on the other hand, doesn't know either of them, and just thinks they're losers in general for thinking that they were better than them. As Cassidy and Butch basically attempt to just belittle Jesse and James, basically stating, like, how much the boss doesn't like them, and all that shit. They basically just have, like, a high school level argument, like, the boss likes us more than you, no, he likes us more than you, But unfortunately for Team Rocket, Giovanni actually did take a side here, obviously preferring Cassidy and Butch. Cassidy then ends the argument by getting Team Rocket to shut up, threatening that if they didn't, then she would explain to Giovanni that Jesse and James had broken into his breeding facility in an attempt to steal the Pokemon that they had stolen, basically insinuating that Jesse and James were traitors. This causes Jesse and James to get pissed off as they go down on their knees and beg for Butch and Cassidy not to do that, because they don't want to lose their boss man. He's all that they have. They need that promotion. Anyways, during this whole argument, Ash and the gang had managed to escape and run off down the hallway, but due to the inevitable noise that was made by this, it still alerted Cassidy's attention. When Cassidy looks away and prepares to go after Ash and the gang, Team Rocket then try and take this opportunity to run off as well, but they run in the other direction, not running out of the room, but further back in, as James wants to grab his Weepin' Bell first, which he had previously left at this breeding center. This, in turn, reveals that James had a second Pokemon with him aside from Weezing this whole time. He was just at this breeding center this whole time. Anyways, James arrives at the cage and manages to pick the lock and free his Weepin' Bell, which had actually evolved into a Victory Bell. So maybe Butch and Cassidy did do a little bit of actual breeding center shit if Weepin' Bell had actually evolved here, but James is ecstatic to see that his Pokemon had evolved, and proceeds to try and hug it, leading the Weepin' Bell to latch onto his head as James screams in annoyance. This is the start of a running gag, guys. Anyways, due to James being distracted by his Victory Bell, it allows Butch and Cassidy to capture them in a cage. As the second they saw Team Rocket get up, they immediately stopped going after Ash and the gang like they were planning to, and decided to deal with Team Rocket first. But anyways, now with Team Rocket in the cage, Butch and Cassidy resumed their chase of Ash and the gang, and managed to, unfortunately, capture Todd, Ash, and Brock inside of the cage by magically dropping one down from the ceiling. Fortunately, Misty, Pikachu, and Togepi are able to dodge the cage coming down, so they were not captured. They manage to escape as Butch takes Todd's camera, but obviously isn't aware of the pictures, as he doesn't delete them. Essentially, Butch and Cassidy call over Officer Jenny and inform her that Ash and the gang, along with Team Rocket, had attempted to steal all of the Pokemon in the breeding center, essentially just framing them as criminals. So this leads Officer Jenny to arrest Ash and the gang, believing that Butch and Cassidy were entirely innocent. Yeah, and she also arrests Team Rocket as well. Butch and Cassidy must be good actors then, damn. Meanwhile, Misty, Pikachu, and Togepi observed Ash and the gang, along with Team Rocket, be taken away in the police car, as Misty comes up with the idea to try and get Todd's camera back so that she can show Officer Jenny the evidence that it was in fact Butch and Cassidy who kidnapped all the Pokemon in cages, not Ash and the gang. The next day, she decides to kill two birds with one stone and get her Psyduck back while doing this as well. Her plan was essentially she went back to the breeding center dressed in a disguise so that Cassidy wouldn't recognize her, and then she asks Cassidy for her Psyduck back, stating that she needed it for an emergency. Cassidy goes back and grabs Psyduck and actually agrees to give it to her. You think maybe she'd be a little hesitant due to the fact that, they steal Pokemon, but especially due to the fact that when she brings it back to Misty, she has to obviously explain to her that Psyduck hadn't improved at all, as they don't do any actual breeding shit. But she still does. She gives Misty back her Psyduck, likely not wanting to raise any suspicion otherwise. As for the camera, while Cassidy had went into the back room to retrieve Psyduck, Misty had let Pikachu out of her shirt, which he had him hiding in, and had Pikachu go around the building and locate Todd's camera and bring it back to her. Doing so right as Cassidy returned with Psyduck. So, with both Psyduck and the camera successfully in her hands, Misty wastes no time making her exit. Perhaps almost a little too quickly, as Cassidy starts to get a little suspicious, like, man, what the fuck was up with that girl? She just Sonic dashed out of this bitch. Meanwhile, now in jail, James was still enjoying playing with his victory bell, ecstatic that he had him back, when Misty rushes in and brings Todd's pictures to Officer Jenny, telling her to look at them, which she does, and sees many of the captured Pokemon, such as a heavily abused Oddish. Misty explains the situation, stating that they were only trying to steal the Pokemon back from Butch and Cassidy, who had stolen the Pokemon and abused them, leading Officer Jenny to believe her and free Ash, Brock, and Todd from jail. Team Rocket then insists that they were with Ash and the gang and were doing the same thing that they were, but Misty refuses to clear Team Rocket, telling Jenny the truth about them as well. Just because Ash and the gang and Team Rocket had a common enemy of Cassidy and Butch didn't mean Misty was going to help Team Rocket for no reason. At the end of the day, they were still trying to steal the Pokemon. Ash and the gang, along with Officer Jenny, then go back to the breeding center, knowing that Cassidy and Butch were the true culprits, and Officer Jenny tries to arrest them, but Cassidy and Butch counter by sending out their Raticate. Ash then gets involved, battling the Raticate with his Pikachu and knocking it out with a Thunderbolt. He then sends out his Bulbasaur and has the Bulbasaur tie them up with a Vine Whip, quickly rendering them unable to move, leading Officer Jenny to tie them up with rope in addition to Bulbasaur's vines, and then drive them off to jail. That's right, Butch and Cassidy don't just blast off, they actually get to go to jail, so hopefully they won't just return next episode, unlike Team Rocket. A while later, Brock then thanks Todd for all his help with all of his pictures, stating that they couldn't have did it without him. And he's fucking right, Todd was actually useful in more than one episode. How rare for Pokemon, a character of the day actually appearing in more than one episode. Officer Jenny then returns from driving Butch and Cassidy to jail, and informs Ash and the gang that she had also since returned all of the Pokemon to their original owners. Yay, happy ending. As a reward, Jenny then offers to drive them to a restaurant of their choosing, and Misty obviously knows which restaurant to choose, as she chooses the one from earlier, showing the store owner the Psyduck, which means that they get a free meal, much to Misty's happiness. And Misty wasn't the only one who was happy, as the restaurant owner cuddled Psyduck with all his fucking might. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they had since begun escaping jail by digging a hole. Them and their fucking hole digging, but hey, they managed to get out of the jail. The episode then ends with Ash and the gang reaching a fork in the road, and Todd deciding to depart from the gang, stating that there was a mountain that he wanted to go to find some Pokemon to take pictures of. Yeah, okay, I think what it really was the writers didn't want to add another permanent cast member to the cast, so they were like, oh shit, Todd's already been here longer than one episode, we need to axe him out of the show immediately. But yeah, unfortunately, Todd departs as Ash and the gang continue on to Cinnabar Island, with Team Rocket unknowingly below them, having digged their way out of the jail cell, but now they were unable to get back up to above ground.